This video contains spoilers for ER, Criminal Minds, Modern Family, Chicago Fire, Arrow, Grey's Anatomy and Supernatural. Consider this your spoiler warning. Hey everyone, Just Ash here. Hold on to your mugs because it's a trope talk video. Today we are talking about jumping the shark. So the first thing I want to say with this video is that this is mostly an opinion-based trope. I will do a small explanation of what the trope actually means to start with, but after that all of the clues and examples that I'm going to give are my opinion. This is just what I think and when these particular shows jumped the shark for me. So what is jumping the shark? Jumping the shark is something that happens to long-running TV shows, and it is the moment where you realise the show is at its peak and it will never be as good again. The phrase comes from an episode of Happy Days where the Fonz literally jumped a shark while wearing water skis. And that clued in all of the Happy Days viewers that the show was basically on the downhill. Now, jumping the shark doesn't necessarily mean the death of a show. Plenty of shows have jumped the shark multiple times and are still going. A couple of examples are Supernatural, which has definitely jumped the shark multiple times for multiple different reasons, and Grey's Anatomy, which has jumped the shark 2 or 3 times now. It's still going strong. It's not as good as it used to be, but there's no signs of it being cancelled any moment now. I guarantee you, as soon as I put this video out, it'll be announced that Grey's Anatomy has been cancelled, which will suck because I actually love that show. However, jumping the shark can be indicative of seasonal rot, which is a slightly different trope that I'm definitely going to do a video on in the future because that's a little bit more concrete. But I don't want to get too much into that now, so let's get into the clues and examples of jumping the shark. So this list of clues that I'm going to give you to tell when a show has jumped the shark is in no way exhaustive. It is just a couple of examples of things that can spell the show going downhill. A lot of the time it's due to external reasons such as a writer or a main actor leaving, or the show's production changing from some random place in Canada to somewhere a bit closer to the actor's home so that they can be available for other projects. But some of the examples that I have of shows jumping the shark are more because ratings are going down, the show is losing its popularity, so they need to do something drastic to try and bring back viewers. My first clue is removing or killing off a popular character. The main example that springs to my mind when I think of this is Doug Ross leaving on ER. This happened because George Clooney wanted to leave the show to go and do other things, so they wrote Doug Ross out. The characters that got put into focus to try and replace him were never as popular as Doug Ross. The actors were never quite as good as George Clooney. And this is a prime example of jumping the shark, not necessarily killing a show, because ER went on for ages after this. I still enjoyed ER. This didn't make me stop watching the show. It was very clear that the show was never going to be as good as the first few seasons. My second clue can be linked with the first one, but sometimes it can be a completely separate entity. So this is bringing in a new character that no one in the fandom likes. Prime example, Agent Ashley Seaver on Criminal Minds. She had a bad start on Criminal Minds because she was brought in amidst the scandal to replace 2 fan favourite characters, so it was never going to end well. She is the only character on Criminal Minds that 90% of the fans agree they hate. She had some very, very strong Mary Sue tendencies. She couldn't do anything wrong. And again, it just signalled that the show was going downhill. Criminal Minds is one of the rare shows that did recover after they removed Seaver and brought back the 2 fan favourite characters. Clue number 3 I wasn't going to include on this list because it has happened so many times it could be a video all on its own. But because it's happened so often, I thought I'd talk about it in this one as well. Basically, it's adding a child character or a baby character to an otherwise adult cast, or after the child actors in the cast are too old to be deemed cute. Anyone who knows me understands that I hate it when shows add babies. The show is then just completely ruined for me. The example I have for this video isn't one of the worst cases of this. So my example for this video is adding Joe and Gloria's baby Joe to Modern Family. This happened after the rest of the child actors were old enough to not be deemed as cutesy anymore, and it pushed other more interesting characters to the side, so I just kind of gave up with Modern Family in the end, which is a shame because the first few seasons were really good. I thoroughly enjoyed them. Another thing that has made me give up on a TV show is when a character who I don't particularly like anyway due to their terrible characterization is given so much more screen time. So this also counts as jumping the shark. Basically, I stopped watching Chicago Fire because Gabriella started training to become a firefighter. And then all of a sudden, every single episode was about her. Her characterization was awful to start with. And the worst thing was that she was being commended and celebrated for doing things that other characters had been criticized for in the past. and I couldn't deal with her being put on a pedestal by the creators so much, so it all just kind of crumbled from there. So the next clue is actually a trope all on its own, but it's also an example of jumping the shark. It's called the romantic plot tumor, and it's basically where a romance arc or a romance story takes over the show. An absolutely stellar example of this is Felicity from Arrow. Please don't hate me if you ship Felicity. I have nothing against Oliver and Felicity as a couple. It's just their entire arc took over the show, and quite frankly, pairing Green Arrow with anyone other than Black Canary for most of the show's run seems a bit silly. It alienated a lot of fans of the character, and everything started to get a bit worse when all of their angst took over key plot points and was given more and more screen time, especially when I didn't care about it and I just wanted to get to the main plot of the episode. Next up is the producers doing a musical episode. Now, before I start this example, let me say, I like a good musical episode. A musical episode does not mean death for a show. Buffy had one of the most well-received musical episodes ever, but the musical episode in Grey's Anatomy was not. I think this is because it came after a very traumatic car crash involving two of the main characters, and the mood whiplash was so severe that people were just a bit like, this show is never going to get any better. The quality of this show is declining. I also don't think the musical episode was helped by the fact that up until then, Grey's Anatomy had been a mostly serious medical drama, and then suddenly there's a musical episode. It just didn't fit with the series, and that didn't sit well with fans. And finally, the biggest example of jumping the shark is when the show's production team decides to do something so out of left field that it does not fit with the show's premise at all. My example for this is the season finale of Supernatural, where they opened a portal to another dimension where Sam and Dean, the main characters, were never born. Now, Supernatural has dealt with some fairly crazy things in the past. There's been time travel and portals to other kind of dimensions. This one, however, is so science fiction and just completely out of what the show started as. Obviously, it started as a Monster of the Week kind of serial, investigating urban legends, things like that. And the show has just gone completely off the rails. However, I've watched every season of Supernatural. I'm going to keep watching it because I've put so much of my life into it. But I can appreciate that, yes, the quality of the show is declining. And that about wraps it up for this trope talk. If you have any examples of shows jumping the shark, leave them in the comments below, and if you've enjoyed this video, please remember to give it a big thumbs up. And remember, pour yourself a nice cup of tea and join me next Friday at 8 for the next video.